Good afternoon, this is Charles Kelly. Hope you're having a great day. Well, today the UK Chancellor Rishi Sunak has announced that Britain has had the biggest economic decline in 300 years. 300 years. I mean, we were talking about the war last week, but this is in 300 years. We've not seen a decline like this. Economic output has fallen nearly 12%. I said the worst for 300 years. I don't know how they had records 300 years ago, but you know, that's a long time. Certainly in modern history, we haven't seen anything like this since the war. Anyway, since the World Wars in the 30s and 40s, these sorts of things. But this is almost unprecedented in recent times. Now, unemployment is set to rise by the second quarter of 2021. So in months to come, unemployment is set to rise to 7.5% or 2.6 million. Now, bear in mind that a year ago, almost a year ago this month, December last year, Britain or the UK had gone into a period of prosperity, and unemployment was at the lowest level since the 1980s, I think. So I think it was around 1 million. So unemployment is going to go up by 2.5 times by next year. And that's because millions of people are losing their jobs. Companies are in trouble. I mean, I read today, even estate agents, even when the market's supposed to be good, there's a crisis at Countrywide Estates, who are the biggest estate agent in the country, and they own Hamptons and that sort of thing, and own lots of, very successful company, been around for donkey's years since I was in property myself. So very, very successful estate agency. And they're in trouble. They're going through a rescue plan. They're burdened with a lot of debt, which is a killer to any business. If you have a lot of debt in the company, that's not a company you want to invest in, even if they appear to be doing well, because in times of trouble like this, that's when things can go wrong and things can hit the fan. Similarly, a lot of high street retailers, which are in trouble, are also sort of burdened by debt. So this is why a lot of people are going to be losing their jobs in the next year. We've already had companies putting people on almost permanent furlough or permanent working from home. And the next step really is to probably cut those jobs. And now the next thing is that borrowing. Now, I was saying a few weeks ago that borrowing should exceed 300 billion, but now they're saying borrowing is already at nearly 400 billion, 394 billion. And bear in mind, back in March, they expected borrowing for the year to be 55 billion. It's now at 3 billion. Borrowing for this year. That's 4 billion, nearly 394 billion, and that pushes the national debt up to over 1 trillion. That's half the size of the UK economy, the national debt. So we're all sort of living on a sort of national credit card, if you like, with getting new cards to pay off the old ones. However, there is a bit of good news that because of the low interest rates, the amount of money needed to service this 400 billion of debt is apparently less than it was when we had 55 billion pounds of debt. So maybe the answer is just to keep borrowing money. I don't know, but someone's going to have to pay for it. And the first group they're going to have to start paying for that are the public sector workers. Now, millions of those have faced a pay freeze and a pensions cut. So they're not going to literally cut their pension, but they're going to cut the amount by which the pension rises by changing the way it's linked to inflation. It's a little bit technical. It's not going to be immediate, but it's something that will save the country millions of pounds or billions of pounds. And certainly the public sector worker pay freeze will save hundreds of millions, if not billions, just by saying, well, we're not going to give you a pay rise next year. However, you'll still be in a job, unlike many people in the private sector. And people in the public sector represent about half the workforce. I mean, half the people in this country are employed by the public sector in what I would call mostly non-productive jobs in terms of bringing in wealth into the country. They are non-productive jobs. Yes, we need a health service. Yes, we need to keep people healthy, and we need our bins collected, and we need our parks and the grass cut on our parks, and all of these things that the public. I was a councillor, so I know what these things are. We need our schools funded, but these are not jobs that you could say are setting up businesses and creating wealth, if you like. Now, public sector workers might argue that, yes, we do create wealth, because how are you going to create wealth without educated children and without people in the health service to look after us all. And that's true, I agree with that. But there are a lot of jobs in the public sector that are completely unproductive. They're not wealth producing. In fact, they're just jobs, almost sort of created by people to keep people in work. And I've seen this myself at local level. There are a lot of jobs that could easily be cut. Local authorities could be merged to save billions of pounds. So anyway, this is why Europe and America, all the governments are in a bit of trouble, because they have such a big burden of state expenditure on public sector workers, public sector pensions, and so on. And this is where the Far East has a massive advantage over the UK, Europe, and America, because they're not burdened down with this almost a debt, if you like. And pensions in the public sector are almost like a debt. There's no money sitting there. That has to be funded out of new contributions and the taxpayer. So the public sector workers are going to have a pay freeze. And of course the unions, the head of the 2UC, Francis O'Grady, has been on the TV saying, this is terrible. The public sector workers are out there working and they're at their own risk. And of course the interviewer said to her, well, what about the private sector workers that have lost their jobs? What about the people that are on hourly contracts or one-day contracts that are saying, well, we don't need you today? What about all the workers that work in the hospitality sector that have been laid off? And some, where pubs and restaurants have even closed down, shops have closed down. What about those workers? At least the public sector workers, which represents about half the people in the country, are safe in their jobs. They can go into work, they can work from home, they can take flexi time, they've got their pensions in place, which are the best pensions you can get. So I wouldn't complain too much if I was a public sector worker. Yes, in the next year you won't get a pay rise. So what? You're going to have to tighten your belt, and that's what most people will have to do in the coming year. Council tax could rise by 5%. That's in the details will come out on that. Again, that will be a blow to a lot of people. If you think of a council tax bill of, say, I don't know, just take a figure of £2,000, £1,500 a year, say. A 5% rise there. It's still something on top of it. It's not a fortune, but it's still, £70, £80, £100, depending on, what your council tax cost is. That can vary from borough to borough. London boroughs tend to have higher council tax. In general, it's said that Labour boroughs have higher council tax than Conservative boroughs. I don't know how true that is across the board, but one Labour borough run by in Croydon has actually recently gone bust. But council tax is set to rise. That will probably include business rates as well. Now, what are the markets doing? Well, the markets are apparently okay. They're riding high. Stock market's okay. In fact, in America, the Dow Jones reached record levels, over 30,000 for the first time ever, and Donald Trump was proud to announce that. It dipped slightly today, but I look at the markets today. The FT 100 index kind of slipped a bit by 0.71%. Oh, that's a lot. FTSE 250 slid by about 1%, and the American markets, S&P down slightly, 0.31, Nasdaq up. So the markets are not worried at all, are they? Even the pound seems to be doing okay. It's not really had that much of an effect on this. I suppose the markets like the fact that the Chancellor is cutting back on things and will hopefully work towards paying this. He has put billions of pounds aside to help the North East with a new development bank, and he's putting money aside, another £1.5 billion. They just pluck these figures out of the air, don't they? Another £1.5 billion to create jobs and help with getting people back into work. So that's a bit of good news. But obviously we're going to face some pain ahead. He said the health crisis hasn't ended, but the economic pain and woes are just beginning, he said. And of course it's got to be paid for. Our national debt is £1 trillion. You know how much £1 trillion is? Well, it's £1,000 billion. A billion is 1,000 million. So 1,000 millionaires make up a billion. Not many billionaires in the world, actually, compared to millionaires. There are millions of millionaires, but not that many. There's probably thousands of billionaires. And if you think, we're borrowing this year nearly 400 of those billionaires, 400 billion, and a trillion is then 1,000 billion. So that's what we're up to, over a trillion, 1.2 trillion in debt. Imagine that. Imagine a mortgage of $1 trillion. It's ridiculous. Most of this debt is serviced by government bonds. The money is raised through government bonds. So people invest in these bonds and get a paltry interest of less than 1% for years and years to come. It's mostly institutions that buy these bonds because they have pension liabilities or other liabilities to cover, so they need a guaranteed return. And governments like the UK never default on their bonds. Now that's where we are now. So what are you going to do about this? What can you do? Most people are not employed by the public sector. So if you're the half of that population that's not employed in a secure public sector job, what can you do? Well, the answer is you've got to row your own boat. If your job is at risk or you've lost your job, then I think the only way, you can get benefits in the UK, but the only way to recover from this is perhaps to look at, well, you can get another job, obviously, but that's going to be difficult. But perhaps you can start a business from home, or you can get into something that will generate some cash for you. And in fact, this Friday is Black Friday, as everyone probably knows. It's on the TV every minute. I'm putting some links there to a training company that are offering special deals this Black Friday. If you register now, just register, and they'll send you all the offers exclusively before Black Friday. I think that's the only thing you can do. We're entering a new era, a new economic model, if you like, more home working, more outsourcing of jobs, maybe abroad. Who knows? The technology has suddenly shot forward. It's leapt forward, hasn't it? And it's much easier for companies to get things done overseas in the Far East at cheaper rates than they can in the UK or America. So we've got to find some ways of adapting to this and learning new skills. So there's a company now that will be offering business skills and new skills that you can learn, and I'll put a link up there. Just register. It won't cost you anything, and they'll send you all the exclusive offers on Friday. So it's like a pre-launch of the Black Friday offers. So have a look at that. So thanks for listening, and I will speak to you very soon. Thank you very much, and thanks for everyone who tuned in there on Facebook Live. Great to see you. Ian, Luella and others there. I'll have to scroll down to see everybody. Great to see you, and do welcome your comments. If you like what I'm telling you, just tick the like button or make a comment. It always helps to spread my reach. And if you're watching on YouTube, do the same. Click the thumbs up button or the like button, and do make comments. Even if you don't agree with me, love to hear your comments. Thanks very much for listening, and good evening. Bye for now.